Maryland. So
Okay, I'll be
yeah,
there.
so yeah, anything, you can, I mean, I've been down there, but I haven't been on the course. I have never done Eagleman. So, whatever advice you can offer,
The first
love
bit
to hear.
is are you coming down Thursday?
Wednesday, the 15th, I'm driving down, but I'm probably not going to get there until late. So my plan was to get down Wednesday, check in Thursday, check my bike stuff Friday, and race Saturday.
Yep. So I'll be putting on a lot of talks, clinics, things like that during the week there.
Okay.
We'll go every day. I'm gonna take a group out and we'll do a bike ride of the run course to see a loop of the run. I do a clinic on Thursday. I think it's gonna be at 11 a.m. We talk about everything from how the starts work, how the change in tents are going to work, how to get from swim exit to transition, how the aid stations are laid out in terms of what you're going to see at each table in what order, like
Right.
that kind of stuff, very kind of detailed. So if you can make that.
Okay.
But I make myself available the whole week. I'll be there Wednesday morning. Through Sunday. And so people can always, I'm always moving around, rolling around, oftentimes just riding my bike around through town and checking on people. And you can always pull me aside, Facebook messages. Every evening I'll post on the Facebook group that I'm going to kind of post up at a spot in the venue and hang out for like an hour if anybody wants to come ask questions or talk so feel free to use me as a resource. It's,
Okay.
Many times I've been there. I just took a group of 20 out there on Saturday, and did a ride. So feel free.
Well, Coach Tim, why don't you start by talking about that since since we started doing this, like what do you need to know? What should people be aware of before clicking? I mean, Steven's going to be doing it, but what if Jackie or Ray want to do it next year, right? What do they need to know?
Yeah, so Ironman Maryland it's a bit of a different race compared to every other Ironman branded race that's out there. In that it is an Ironman, it's owned by Ironman, so it has the typical logistics of an Ironman, right? Tons of support, tons of volunteers, right? All the nutrition you could want, very well supported. But it is ran like a small local race. It is not very commercialized. The residents are pretty much the residents in Cambridge absolutely love the race. So they come out in full force. They do homestays for the race. The locals are most of the volunteers that you'll see there. Like it's their hometown race, and they love it as such. And they've been doing that long before it was Ironman, when it was just a one-off race that was owned by a small organization before Ironman took it over. So it's a feel unlike any other Ironman. It's like you're racing with your friends and your family, as opposed to being at some kind of big commercial shindig, so to speak. The other thing is the previous race director, Jerry Boyle, myself and a few others, we made a point after Ironman took it over that we wanted to make it something different. And in that, we really have focused on people doing their first Ironman. Like it is a first timers haven, so to speak. Like I was just telling Steven, like we do talks and clinics and there's all these things during the race week that you're not going to get at another race, that now Angie, the race director, since who was on Jerry's team before his unfortunate passing, she 100% is on board with all of it. And so they're not things that you'll see in the official Ironman athletes guide, because they're not Ironman things. They are Ironman Maryland things. So like I was telling him, like every day from Wednesday to Friday, I will post a time and say, I'm taking my bike and I'm going to go ride a loop of the run course. Come on out. Let's go ride. We'll point out, here's where all the aid stations are. Here's where your turnarounds. Here's what you need to know. Here's special needs, walk everybody through it. We do a big clinic on Thursday. That's like, here's where the start is. Here's the path you want to take from swim exit to the changing tent or to transition or whatever. We get very detailed and very in depth to answer all the questions humanly possible. And it's geared towards first timers, but you don't have to be a first time Ironman to attend. Usually I will pull friends of mine, from the area that have been racing as long or longer than I have and know the course very well and things like that. And they're the ones that will help me do all these talks throughout the week. And we just try to make it as all encompassing and easy as possible. And it's an atmosphere from the community that you can't really find at any other race.
So what makes it so special for a first timer to do an Ironman at Maryland?
Outside of the things that we add that aren't just part of the normal Ironman schedule, a big part of it is the community. Cambridge is a small historic town. It's right on a river. So it has quite a bit of charm to it. And the locals they absolutely love it, man. They are all about it. The local bar, the local brewery in town, RAR, is on the run course, and they open up all outside seating, and it's like a big, cheering section and hooting and hollering. And the volunteers and staff know that it's supposed to be a big race for first timers. So literally everybody goes out of their way to make sure that everything that you could need, will need, questions you have are all answered, taken care of. Even if you travel to the race alone, you're never alone at Ironman Maryland because there's so many people that are there and they're putting forth special effort just to help the athletes. So it's kind of a different experience than you'll get anywhere else. Excuse me.
So in terms of the course itself, it's a flat course?
It's the flattest course you will ever see in your life. I thought that I knew what flat was until I went out and rode on the east, in this area the first time. The full Ironman might maybe have 50 feet of elevation change for the entire bike course. Maybe. If the winds are down, you could ride the whole course in one gear and never shift for 112 miles. It is literally that flat. If you think you know what flat is and you haven't been there, you're wrong. Okay, it's literally like riding on a dinner plate. Like it's that flat.
So what's the hard part of it? The swim?
Well, no. So flat doesn't mean easy, because flat means you never get a break. So if you ride a hilly course, right, you go up over a hill, your heart rate's high, your legs are burning, you go over the crest and you soft pedal, or people coast and they recover and catch their breath and get their heart rate back in. In a race that's that flat, you never you never stop pedaling, ever. You just don't. And if the winds are up, then you're battling through the winds or whatever. So it is a fast course, but it's not easy, because it's a totally different challenge when you never get to take a break, So, but as far as the course itself, yeah, the swim is the toughest part. It's a river swim. Sometimes it can be choppy. It's usually not that terrible. And they always do the direction of the course depending on which way the tide is going, so that when you're swimming against the tide, you're up against the shoreline where it's barely noticeable at all. And it's a 2-loop swim, but it's a 2-loop swim that you don't have to get out of the water. You know, most Ironmans that have a 2-loop swim, you have to get out of water, run over. Timing met. Ironman Maryland was the first race in North America to have an overhead timing system in the swim. So it's suspended over buoys and you actually swim under it and it gets your lap times. And I guess we did that maybe in 2017 or 18. I think it was 2018. So it was the first race in North America to do that. First Ironman. I can't, you know, small races might have, and I just don't know, but it was first Ironman in North America to do that. So, but since it's 2 loops and it's pretty sheltered, it's really not that bad. The bike course is windy. It's just part of it. You're out on the flat plains and you go through a wildlife refuge, and you know, so there's always wind. Even if the weather forecast says it's not going to be windy, it'll be windy. You just have to count on it. We went out Saturday and the weather was saying 3 to 4 mile an hour winds, and there's all these people seeing the course for the first time, and yeah, it's not going to be windy. And we go out, and I was in the front group and with one of my athletes and then another guy who just tagged on, and he's like, oh, this is great. It's flat, it's fast. And then we hit like mile 30 or 25 of the loop and turned into the wind. And he was like, I didn't even know the wind was blowing. And I'm like, it's always blowing, buddy. You just don't know it. You don't know when it's behind you. And then the run course at Maryland is fantastic. It is 3 loops, which is a little odd. Most places generally do 2, but the reason they do 3 is because once you get outside of town, there's really nothing. You know, it's wildlife refuge and it's farmland, and there's nothing out there. And it's also very exposed. So 3 loops keeps you pretty much in the neighborhoods. It keeps you in the neighborhoods or in town the whole time. So it's great from a support standpoint. You know, you're never kind of like out in the middle of nowhere. You're always, neighbors are out. If it's hot, people put their sprinklers out in the road, you know, so people can run through and cool off. Or some people, you know, they'll have like a case of beer out if athletes want to grab beer. Like it's, the run is where it's at, man. It's pretty cool there.
What time of the year is it?
It's in 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks. It's Saturday the 19th, I believe, of September. Might be the 18th. It's 18th or 19th. Third
18th.
Saturday of
18th. Does it go through Baltimore?
No.
no.
Not even
you're
close.
no, you're an hour and a half away from the city. So it's on the eastern shore. You're actually closer to like Ocean City, Maryland, and you have to cross the Chesapeake Bay to get there. You know, it's the other part of Maryland that everybody forgets about. That's not Baltimore or Annapolis, or you know, it's the blue collar part of Maryland.
What's the difference between Ironman Maryland and Maryland 70.3?
Eagleman 70.3. Not a whole lot. It's ran by the same race staff, ran out of the same park.
Is it the same course?
The swim is the same course, except you do 1 loop instead of 2. The bike is very similar, like 90%, except for Eagleman, you race it counterclockwise, and Ironman Maryland, you race it clockwise. So they flip the direction around. And then the run is, they're probably like 50-60% the same. But it's all staged out of the same park, and it's all in the same general area. They just mix up a couple roads here and there and kind of change it up just a little bit. Eagleman, they've been holding the bike course, especially, like it's been the same bike course for 24 years or whatever, what has been 25 years.
That's in the spring.
Huh?
Is that in the spring?
It's in June. It's the second Sunday in June. It's like racing on the surface of the sun. The first year I raced it, the heat index was like 112 degrees, I think. Like, and you know, and then it's East Coast, right? So it's like 80% humidity and 104,000 degrees out. And they had a pre-race meeting and told the runners if they could to run on the painted lines on the road so your shoes wouldn't melt. Like, it was
Wow.
now this year the weather was nice. 2 years ago I did it in 19 and it actually was like 75 degrees and raining. So, and it was like the first time it had rained at the race, like, and it was quite beautiful. But generally it's pretty, June in Maryland, especially over on the Eastern Shore, tends to be pretty hot and muggy. Ironman Maryland is, it's in the fall, so it might get warm, but it's usually not that humid and it's much better conditions.
So actually, I have a question about biking in the heat. So basically, there is a guideline for running that for every 10 degrees, or I think it's every 5 degrees, you should drop your pace by 30 seconds per mile. Is there a similar guideline for biking?
So yes and no. The first thing is when you run, generally they tell you to dress as if it's 10 to 15 degrees warmer. Because when you're working, you're building, your core temperature up. And in cycling, it's actually the opposite. They tell you to dress like it's about 15 degrees colder because you have the wind and things like that. So you have to consider that. As far as effort goes, I generally will not ever subscribe to if it's this hot, lower your pace by this much. And that's simply because there's too many things that affect pace, right? Are you going uphill? Are you going downhill? Are you tired? Is it windy? Is it hot? Is it cold? Like all those things change pace so much. So I do it by effort only, right? So some people use heart rate, most of my athletes would use heart rate, and that's generally the most commonly used thing because it's the most accessible metric. And so if you're using a metric like that, the conditions don't matter. Because if you're running within a certain heart rate zone, you're going to slow down to keep your heart rate in check the hotter it gets. Or when it gets really cold in the winter, you're going to slow down because your body's working to keep your core up. So that's generally why I prescribe to something like that. But it definitely doesn't affect you as much on the bike as it does running when it's hot, as long as you can stay on top of your fluids. It's not quite as detrimental. You'll be, whooped later just out of fatigue, but you're not going to run into the same kind of issues as dramatically as you would running.
Okay.
Excuse me.
On something like Maryland or
Eagleman.
Eagleman, thank you.
I got you.
What should your strategy be? Should you go out relatively easy and then pick up the pace?
So long course racing, there's a huge difference between short course racing, which I consider like Olympic and sprint, to long course racing, which is half an Ironman, half and then full course. And that is everything you do wrong in long course has a much bigger effect because you're out there longer. So like if I was doing a short course race and I go out too hard on the bike, in an Olympic, I'm only on the bike for about an hour. So, I might run a little slower, but ultimately it's not going to be that big of a deal. I might lose a couple minutes. If you go out too hard in a 112-mile bike leg of an Ironman, you can lose 2 hours on the run. Like, it happens quick. You can go, if you ride 10 minutes too hard, you're going to lose at least 45 minutes in the run, guaranteed. So pacing is super critical, and then so is the nutrition and hydration are way more critical in longer distance racing as well. So what I tell people is you should always be building into your effort, right? Swim it's much harder to gauge, right? You don't have a pace or a heart rate or something that you can look at in real time. You have to stop to see it, right? When you're swimming. So it's entirely by feel. And it's such a small percentage of the race that if you swim a minute too hard or something in a half Ironman, it's not really going to cost you that much. You can get yourself back under control on the bike. But the critical thing is you get done a swim and you've been swimming anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, or 70.3 to a full, depending on your pace. So you've been horizontal for that long, you stand up, you go to transition, and then you start fiddling to get all your stuff together and get on your bike. You hop on your bike and your heart rate's sky high. The first thing you have to do is get your heart rate slow, start easy, and get your heart rate back under control. Because if you take off while it's high, it'll never come back down. You can't, if you let it run high, you can't recover from it. But if you go out a little too easy, you can always build harder later into a workout, later into your race. But you can't recoup those matches if you burn them in the beginning. The other thing is it's very easy early in a race. You feel great, everything feels good. And hey, I didn't drown. I survived the swim. Now we're rocking and rolling or whatever. And you look down and your pace is high because you're feeling fresh. And then you get to mile 30 of the bike if it's a half Ironman, or mile 50 if it's a full Ironman, and you're like, oh, I'm averaging this. Let's just see if I can keep that up. And that is a surefire way to ruin your entire race. I think is trying to hit a pace, because you're going to fatigue. It's going to happen. Like, you're just going to start getting tired. So if you build into it instead of starting high, it'll allow you to keep progressing, for one. And two is, in long racing, you have what's called cardiac drift, which is where you get tired. Your heart rate just, even if you're keeping the exact same effort, as you fatigue, your heart rate starts to creep, right? Any good coach that, works with an athlete or does pacing plans will account for that, because it happens naturally. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it's one of those things, again, where if you're going just a little too hard early, when that drift starts to happen, it's going to push you heart rate rise way beyond where you should be. So the biggest key to long course racing from a pacing standpoint is always start easier. I tell people, if they're doing an Ironman, the bike should be boring. It should be so easy. It's boring. 112 miles is a long way to go on a bike, even if that's all you're doing, so it should be boringly easy, because you still have to run a marathon afterwards, so pacing is all about keeping your effort under control. You have to be controlled. If you're not, then you're in trouble.
Does the boring as easy apply to a 70.3 as well?
No, it doesn't. But so in my opinion, 70.3 is the hardest distance to race. And that's because if you're fit and whatnot, like for me personally, the difference generally in average pace between an Olympic and a half Ironman bike split is less than a half a mile per hour. Like you can ride a 70.3 bike split that hard. And then you have to run a half marathon off of it, versus running a 10K. So 70.3s, to execute them at the highest level, is you just have to be willing to suffer for hours, like, because that's how you do it well. Like, it's literally, for me, it's like, oh, if I want to have a good 70.3, I have to take the swim out of it. I have to be willing to suffer for 4 hours. Like, that's just what it is, but no, like the Ironman bike is zone 1, zone 2, very chill. The half Ironman bike split, if you're fit and you've trained for it properly, you're within 5 beats of like your threshold pace, and heart rate, in terms, you can ride them that hard. But that comes with time and practice, because it's very easy to step over that line. And I can't tell you how many 70.3s I've had where I felt really strong through like mile 7 of the run. Good bike split, strong through mile 7, and by mile 10, the whole thing's coming apart because I was just a touch too hard on the bike. So you have to be way more careful.
Okay.
But don't you think a lot of that too has to do with nutrition and hydration?
100%. And it's not just nutrition and hydration in the race, it's hydration, it's those things leading into the race. I can't tell you how many people I see. It's very common. They're out race Sunday morning, they're out Saturday night carbo loading, right? Getting their big old plate of pasta and chicken, and they're getting after it. And that is not going to do you any favors on Sunday at all. It takes time for your body to break these things down, and you have to top off your stores of glycogen and and your potassium, magnesium. You have to keep your tanks topped off, and that takes days and days and days and days to maintain those levels. You can't get it overnight. It's just like you see people pounding fluids for 2 days before a race. Doesn't do anything except make you flush out all the electrolytes that are in your system. Properly hydrating, you should be starting 5 to 7 days out, depending on how hot it's going. And it doesn't need to be a ton. Like if you're someone who's already drinking a decent amount of water, adding like an extra 40 ounces, 30 ounces, 40 ounces a day, but making sure it's something that has electrolytes in it, whether it's like a G2 Gatorade, or like I'm a Infinite guy, so I use Infinite Hydrate, or like Scratch, which is a big one. When you add those extra bottles or glasses of fluid, if you're mixing with something like that in that week leading up, you're setting yourself up to be successful, because it literally takes that long for your muscles to absorb it. If you start drinking water, if you think about, if you drank a lot of water today, you would feel bloated, you would be puffy, and that kind of stuff. And that's because it all settles under your skin. It takes a long time to actually get it into your muscles. So you really should be fueling. I call it fueling is both hydration and nutrition. You should be fueling is critical from about 7 days out to the race in order to have a successful race day, not just the couple days beforehand.
So let's talk a little bit about infinite nutrition, right? So a couple of people told me that I should be doing that, right? I'm preparing for my first 70.3. Can you talk a little bit about infinite nutrition since you are endorsing it?
Yeah. So
I just bought it, but
in all clarity up front, like my team has a deal with Infinite, right? Most of my athletes are on it. I'm personally on it. I've been on it since long before I had a deal with Infinite. I've been using it exclusively since 2013. So the way Infinite is supposed to work is we need to get a certain amount of fluids, certain amount of calories, and those calories have to be carbs and fat and electrolytes and blah, 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 right? During, to sustain effort. And where a lot of people have difficulty, myself included, and it's why I went to Infinite in the first place, is I hate to eat things when I'm working out. I can't eat solids. If I'm out on a long ride and we stop at a gas station to refill, like I might grab a candy bar to have something sweet or something like that, but I'm not eating gels, I'm not eating bars like while I'm working out. That's just doesn't work for me. And so with Infinite, but like most people, I can always drink, right? I can always hit my bottles and that's fine. So what Infinite does is that they make their powdered mix to give you the calories, the nutrition, the minerals and the electrolytes and things that you need to be mixed into your fluids. And they have pre-made formulas that, they have different ones that are like geared more towards longer efforts, some that are geared towards shorter efforts and things like that. Or you can do like what I've been doing since 2013 is I get a custom blend made where you can go online and fill out a questionnaire, or you can call them and talk to a consultant, answer a bunch of questions, and then they will help you figure out a mix that is this many calories, this much of this much of that, geared towards you. And then you can order it, use it, you can tweak it. Like I've tweaked mine a couple times over the years, just I felt like I wanted a little less of that, a little more of that. I don't like my stuff to have a lot of flavor. So like I dialed my flavor all the way down, stuff like that. And so like my personal mix is 323 calories, which is what I need an hour based on my testing that I have done. And so when I train or race, I will mix, one bottle, it's 323 calories. So I'll mix a couple bottles and then I'll have water. And I know if I'm getting my bottle every hour of Infinite, and then if it's hot, I will drink additional water. If I need to be getting a bottle and a half an hour in or whatever, I'll make sure a bottle that's Infinite, the bottle and the rest of it's water. Then I know that I'm getting my calories in, and I know I'm getting my carbs in. I'm getting my fuel in that I need to be able to sustain my effort throughout the race. So it just, for me, it really simplifies the process. I don't need to carry anything. And then if I was doing like an Ironman, I can make it to the halfway point on, I essentially will prep my bike for 3 bottles to make it to the halfway point. And so I'll have my nutrition loaded for that. And then in my special needs bag, I will have a Ziploc bag that has the powder, the Infinite powder that I would need for the second half. So then I'm not carrying 100 bottles or trying to figure out how to do it. Like I get there, I make one stop, I take 60 seconds to mix it with the water that they have at special needs, and then I'm gone again. And then also you don't have to worry about putting bottles there that sit there for 6 hours and cook in the sun before you get to special needs either, so you're getting fresh fluids while you're doing it.
I don't want to talk too much about Infinite, but what they sold me was a speed play, right? So I guess that was from like an hour to 3 hours, and then
Yeah, the speed. Yep. Speed
from
and
3+ hours.
Yep.
So that's okay.
I use that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I use the
sorry.
Speed for women and the Go Far for women. They're
they
preset
do
formulas.
What was that? I didn't hear that, Jackie.
Let me slow my treadmill down.
So what she was saying is she uses the Speed formula for women and the Go Far formula for women, depending on what she's doing. So they do have women specific formulas just because our bodies require little, some different minerals and things like that.
I gotcha.
So they do have women specific formulas that have become really popular in probably like the last 3-4 years.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jackie.
Sure.
So does anybody have any specific questions for Coach Tim about Maryland or Eagleman before we just go on to Savageman? No? Okay.
No.
That's all right. Steve will have them all for me in about 3 weeks.
I'll see you when I get there at some point. I'll make sure I get together with you.
Yeah, shoot me a Facebook message or an email or whatever, and we'll hook up and we'll work out any issues you got, any questions you have.
I'll meet you on one of your outings, maybe on the ride of the run course or something.
There you go. I was saying, worst case, I can show you where all the good restaurants are while you're in.
Very important.
Yes, that's fueling. All right, so what's next?
Savageman.
Savageman, my absolute favorite.
What time of year is that, Savageman?
Savageman.
That is a 70.3, right?
They have a sprint, an Olympic, and a half.
Oh,
So if you get you one of those, you make it up the wall and go on to finish the race. You can get one of these, and they will also have another one that's engraved that gets laid into the asphalt on the big climb at Savageman. So
wow, that's
the
so
coolest
cool.
trophy. It's the coolest award you can ever get because it will be there forever. So if you make it up the wall, yeah, they engrave a brick and lay it in the road on top of the wall for a lot of people to fall on trying to climb it. I'm sure people have bled on my name in the past. It, so Savageman is also generally the second or third week of September, so it falls right around the same time as Ironman. Now this kind of may be a bit moot because Savageman was canceled for this year, and the word on the street is that may be the end of the race.
Oh,
Sadly. So it's not confirmed yet, but it sounds kind of like that's where it's going, which stinks. Now, me and a couple locals may be talking about trying to do something to revive it in some form and fashion. Savageman was actually my very first triathlon I ever did. So it has a special place in my heart. My family is from up in that area in Western Maryland, so I've been going there my whole life. And that was the whole reason I chose to do it. I've since done it, I think 8 times, 7 times, 8 times, different formats. I've raced all 3 distances there. I did it as a bike relay one year for fun to help out a friend, there is no course like it that I've ever been on. The swim is really nice. It's a nice mountain fed lake. So it's a really nice, clear swim. The water's never super warm. It's perfect wetsuit temperature. The bike course is, at least for the half, I don't know that there's a tougher one out there realistically. In long course, it's 7,000 feet of climbing over 56 miles. So it's, it's the exact opposite of Ironman Maryland. For reference, my fastest bike split at Savageman is almost an hour slower than my fastest bike split at Eagleman. So I've done 222, I think, at Eagleman, and I've done like 318 at Maryland at Savageman. So it's very tough. But if you get out of your head the fact that you have to go slow, it is also one of the most beautiful courses you will ever ride in your life. It's out in the middle of the mountains. Black bear sightings are pretty common out there, and wildlife everywhere. And you ride up over the Eastern Continental Divide, going up Big Savage Mountain. The Western Port Wall, which is what you go up to earn one of these. The road is literally lined on both sides with spectators for about a half a mile up the climb, and they're cheering and hooting and hollering, and then the rest of it outside the mountains it's like rolling farmland and stuff on the way back. It's very pretty out there. It hasn't been really all that developed out there, so it's nice country riding, and then the run course is pretty much entirely within the state park that the race is hosted out of. Does go down one side street, but it's a really nice run. It's rolling. It's got one challenging hill on it one challenging climb you have to do. Actually, 2 challenging climbs because you have to run through the campground at the state park. It's a very tough course, but it is a very cool experience, and it's actually a very beautiful course. If you can take your mind off the fact that you're not going that fast. I joke all the time, and I say, if you ever want to see a bunch of 40-something-year-old men on $15,000 bikes crying and complaining because they're going 3 miles an hour, that's the race to go to. Because it's true. It is so true. Guys out there that bought all the gear and all ready to go, and they're paper boying up the hill, and they're crying about it the whole way, and and I'm like, you guys did sign up for this, so I hope it comes back. Fingers crossed. Literally, I met my wife at that race. I got married not at the race, but at the race venue. It's a very big part of my life, so I hope it comes back. But
well, keep us posted on that.
yeah, I will. We're going to make something happen. If it's gone, There's a lady, Ellie Hamilton, who lives up there, who I just encountered on a ride up there once, and she's 70 now. And she was the first person I ever saw go up the wall, which the wall's 31% grade, by the way. It is one of the steepest roads in the country. It's so steep, it's closed to car traffic because they don't plow it, and that kind of stuff. So you can ride up it, you can't drive up it. There's a guardrail at the top and they remove it on race day. She was the first person, and at the time she was probably in her late 50s, mid 50s, was the first person I ever saw go up that climb sitting down, not having to stand on her bike. She is a cool, tough lady, and we've been bouncing messages back and forth about what we can do to kind of keep the spirit alive, at least for the race. So if we come up with something, I'll let you all know.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have any questions for Coach Tim?
Do you want to do NC since that was kind of short?
NC, North Carolina. Yeah, let's do North Carolina.
Since there's not a lot to talk about Savageman, we can cover that because I know you personally wanted to talk about that one.
Correct. I do want to talk about that one. I'm very nervous about that one. Actually, what they're saying now is that there's no shuttles. So you have a lot of walking to do in between transitions, which is going to add to time.
Are they going to move? Are they going to move transition?
No, there's 2 transitions, and I was told that you had to walk about 1.5 miles to the swim start, and then from the swim it's another mile or so to transition 2.
That's a lot of walking.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm pulling up the course now because maybe they've changed it. In the past, you definitely we took a shuttle to the swim start.
Yeah, they stopped doing that because of COVID.
Sure. But unless they moved it, the park one was in was maybe a 1/2 mile, 3/8 of a mile from swim exit. So no, it's still in the same place. So that mile's an exaggeration. It's not that far.
Okay, good.
I have the map up. So it's point to point swim. And then you get out at this dock, right? So there's the dock, you get on the dock and then you climb up a ladder. And then there's a very wide sidewalk and there's railings on the left side. And they will allow people to put shoes there if they want. Because you do run sidewalk across the road, like it's not a grass run, it's all a blacktop or sidewalk run. So a lot of people will go and stack shoes there, or flip-flops there if they're going to walk the transition or whatever. It's definitely not a mile. It's probably 3/8 of a mile or so. So when I did the race, I ran it in barefoot, but obviously I was racing for time, but there was 300 pairs of shoes on the side. There's an awful, a lot of people choose shoes. So that's fine. The swim is
distinct, Hillary.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
Make sure your shoes are distinct, like a really colorful, laces or something.
Yeah, put some ribbons on them or something, something to make them stand out.
So they put them there before they even go to the swim, like the day before or like that morning or something.
So in the past, we actually had to put them there ourselves.
Oh.
So you put them where you want them. I think the group that I was with, I think we put them there the evening before the race.
Okay.
Because people are going and checking out the course and they're going to look at swim exit. You're going to transition to rack your stuff the day before. So you're already right there and you could just walk across the street and shoes down. And then the bike course. So the swim it's a really nice swim. You know, you're in the intercoastal waterway. The 70.3 doesn't get near the push that the old full used to get. Because like when we did the full there, you literally started in the ocean. And then you swam into the waterway. And you literally got to push for about 1.5 miles before you got to turning and stuff into the marine area. But what'll happen is you'll go out from the shore, you'll hit a buoy and you'll hang a right. And then when you hang that right, the current's going to actually catch you and it's going to push you down. And you'll follow that straight for probably 1/4, 3/8 of a mile. And then you'll hang a left and you'll head in towards the marina area. Once you get in there, there's pretty much no current at all. There's no waves. Like it's very nice and kind of flat water, and you can't get lost. You can't really miss a turn because there's like tall grasses over here and stuff like that. And so there's really only kind of one way to swim through it. So it's a very simple course to swim, and it's pretty much impossible to get lost, to make a wrong turn, which is kind of nice. And then you're up the ladder across the street to the park, to transition to get on your bike, get your bike stuff, get rolling. Bike course is very quick. It is a very quick course. There is a bridge that you have to go over leaving and coming back. And it's really like the only hill on the course. It's mostly just very gently rolling, generally very smooth asphalt. You do get on the highway briefly, which is kind of cool. They close off the highway and they have police at exit ramps, and it's a pretty neat little thing. So you go around an exit ramp onto the highway, and then you get off and take the back roads, go do the little loop, and then you come back. Not really much to worry about on the bike. It's very, very straightforward, very not technical, no crazy corners, nothing. Once you get out of downtown and you're on the main roads, like it's just, you can just settle in and ride and have really nothing to worry about at all. The transition T2 is downtown, and it's in the convention center, and it's pretty cool. Because you come down, you exit, you hand your bike off to somebody because they rack them in the convention center for you, and then you're off running to your bag and your transition to grab your bag of stuff, and you rock and roll inside the convention center, and then you're out onto the run course. Run course is very nice. It's a very nice run course. There's one hill that you have to run that's in the middle of downtown, but there's a ton of people there. It's mostly a pretty flat and fast run course as well. The city of Wilmington absolutely loves this race. I had so much fun racing there because the people were so much fun. It was a really good atmosphere and a really great environment. The only downside to that run course is you run around a local lake. And what happens is you start traversing around the lake and you get all the way to where you can see where you started, and then you have to turn around and reverse it. So it's an out and back, run with a 180-degree turnaround at the end. So you're running along and you're doing your thing and you're like, oh, I'm at the end of the lake. And then they make you turn around and go back the way you came. So that can be a bit of a buzzkill, but it's a very nice area around the lake. It's very easy to find distractions and things like that. But it's also a very simple run course too. You make a couple turns to get out, to get up onto the main drag in town, and then you literally follow that all the way to the lake. And then you run around the edge of the lake, and then you return back. So once you get initially away from the convention center. There's maybe 2 actual turns on the course. You know, the course winds and does its thing, but you're not actually turning and, you know, you're not getting on the individual roads and things like that. You just follow the landscape basically. So it's pretty simple in that regard, not much to think about. And like I said, downtown Wilmington, they really, really enjoy the race. Like it's a hopping spot to be during the race for sure. And there's lots of good places to eat right there downtown afterwards, or grab a beer or hang out or whatever you want to do. It's a lot of fun. I'll go back there. I was going to go back in 18. I was signed up and then it was canceled because of the hurricane. So it didn't end up going. And then I had plans to do Maryland in 19. So I transferred my registration to Eagleman. But I'll go back there probably in the next couple years. I had a lot of fun there. It's a good race.
It's good to know. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I think we've wrapped up
Oh, yeah.
our hour. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Any other- No, okay. So thank you very much again for your time. And yeah, we'll see you again.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Hillary.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys,
Thank you.
if anybody has any questions about these races or other races, at this point, I've been to most of them, and if I haven't, I know someone who has. So if anybody has questions about races coming up, logistics or courses or anything like that, just feel free to reach out. And either I can answer them, or if I can, I know someone who can, and I can put you in touch with someone who's usually there, like at the venue or something. So feel free to use me as a resource, guys. I'm always happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good day.